Welcome to the DesignCast podcast, where we dive deep into the innovative world of educational design. What is DesignCast's mission? To explore cutting-edge strategies, unique learning spaces, and diverse teaching methods that cater to every learner's needs. Each week, we'll connect with passionate educators, visionary thinkers, educational startups, and inspiring authors who are reshaping the landscape of teaching today. So, whether you're a seasoned educator, a curious learner, or someone passionate about educational innovation, you're in the right place. Listen in as we unlock the potential of design in education and inspire the leaders of tomorrow. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring you the insights that matter. Let's embark on this journey together. Are you ready to transform education and inspire tomorrow's leaders? Discover The Future of Learning by Jason Reagan. This essential guide helps educators, administrators, and community leaders create dynamic, cutting-edge learning environments. Learn how to design innovation spaces that foster creativity, collaboration, and hands-on learning. Prepare students for the 21st century workforce with critical skills like analytical thinking, resilience, and technological literacy. Dive into educational models like design thinking and maker education. Overcome challenges with practical strategies and explore the latest tools and technologies, from 3D printers to virtual reality. Ensure your innovation spaces are inclusive, safe, and supported by the community. Stay ahead with continuous improvement tips and curated resources. Transform your classroom, makerspace, or community hub today. Get your copy of The Future of Learning and reimagine education for the next generation of innovators and leaders. Available now exclusively on Amazon.
Welcome back to another edition of DesignCast, and I am so excited to be talking to my old friend Rita B. And I say old only because we've known each other a very long time. So Rita Bateson, welcome to DesignCast. I can't wait for us to chat. And so we've known each other for, I guess, ever. But folks who are listening may not know you. And so can you tell me a little bit about sort of your origin story to where you got to now? And then we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing currently.
So I am, as you can probably tell through the cold and through the COVID, I am Irish originally, an unusual combination. I'm actually American-Irish, which is the reverse of most people. So my mom's American. That gave me certainly a little bit of cachet in Dublin in the 80s. So in about 2000, Ireland was finally kind of coming out of its never-ending gloom and misery. And I decided that it was time to go abroad. I was desperate to teach in Italy. And I contacted a lot of Italian schools. And it was kind of before the IB was massive. And they said, go and get some English experience. So I did. I went to the UK for a year. And that turned into 8 years. And then I picked up a design teacher en route as well and made him travel the world with me. So when I first got to the UK, I loved it because the Irish system is incredible. It still is, even 40 years later. It's rote learning, it's exam oriented, and it's very traditional. So when I got to the UK, I was like, oh, wow, they're talking about skills and they're talking about ideas and concepts. And then I got to the IB and I was like, now I get it. Especially, I started with DP and then I went on to MYP. And so our journey took us from originally the UK, then we went to Switzerland, and then we went to Bermuda. So we had to fly out after Switzerland. And then my husband saw the job actually originally in the IB. They were looking for a curriculum and assessment manager, math and science. And he encouraged me to go for it. And he encouraged himself to stay in Bermuda for a little bit long. He got a lot of sympathy because his wife had left him and all of these things, and he really milked it. And then he joined me in The Hague, and we were there for, 3 years. I was responsible for the math and science, and it was post Next Chapter. I think probably, Jason, that's where you and I started hanging out.
We did.
When I was doing the SSS process. I absolutely loved it. We adopted a small child in the meantime, and it was really fun to be in the room with people who didn't roll their eyes when I wanted to talk about pedagogy and philosophy, and it was really enriching. And then where did we go next? Then we went to Germany next. I was in Germany. I wrote the textbooks for the NYP math series for Hodder, the official ones. Then we went to Ireland. We got the call back home. My parents were getting on a bit, and when you have a child, sometimes that homing instinct kicks it. And we came back and we opened a continuum school here in Dublin, the very first IB continuum school. That was really enriching. That was in 2018. And following, we started with like 50 kids, and then we had 300, and then COVID hit, and all of the Chinese kids who couldn't get back to China because of New Year celebrations, they were stuck in Ireland. And we moved online, and it was just really successful. So I think they're at about 700 together, give or take. Yeah, really. And he's still there. He's NYP coordinator. He was chief examiner for design. And so we're a real IB family through. Then, gosh, what came next? Then my parents get older and kids get sick. So we had a period of kind of chronic illness for a while. So I stepped down as head of school and went back to the classroom, which was really exciting to try to balance everything. Obviously, school life can only sustain so many hospital appointments. So I took carer's leave. And in that time, I was shocked at kind of how many people approached me to say, like, could you do this? Could you do this?
Yep.
And so since then, I've been really lucky. I've been able to establish a full-time consultancy, and I've been writing books. I've just finished an NYP curriculum design, and I'm halfway through a PYP curriculum design.
Wow.
For mathematics. So busy.
I'm tired. I need to sit down just from listening to that. To all of that. And so that's so funny. And actually, Rita, we have that connection because if I'm not mistaken, your husband and yourself went to Bermuda at the same school I used to be at. And then I'm not sure if if he took the spot right after me or the next person. I can't remember, but it's so funny that one that just continues to kind of be, because I know who's in that position now as well. And she's probably listening, so we don't want to say too much. So it's fun that we were at
Very special school. It was a really nice time in our lives. I think we felt very far away from home. But I think what was really nice, and it's unusual, is that the school that we were at, they didn't have the pressure of diploma. So they really were very experimental and very innovative. And I suppose that's different now for them. But it was just a really special place to be at the time.
It's a special place. I agree 100%. And I think anyone who's ever considered working on an island, and when I say island, I don't mean like UK-sized island. I mean like a Caribbean-sized island. There's pros and cons to that, right? And so it sounds really exciting and exotic, and it is for a short time. And then other things happen, and the winds are too much, and you can't take off, and all these other things happen. And so, it's definitely something you have to get used to. And so that's so funny. So this sounds really exciting what you're doing now. So I know you've been doing all kinds of different stuff. We've been kind of back and forth about some things, but tell me about this current project you're working on. It is super exciting and super interesting to me. So tell me what you're doing.
I'm married to a design teacher, so of course he comes home and tells me, lucky November 2020. Oh, absolutely. I hear about every subject should be design. Design is everywhere. I agree. I know you do, because I've heard it from you too. And I agree to a certain extent. And I think he has certainly changed my way of looking at things and thinking of things, but not initially with AI. So he came on very enthusiastic about AI, and I was, of course, I took up the mantle of being a skeptic. So we had the two extremes. It's like the never ending. We've had a 10-year battle about whether NYP criteria should be graded by a strand or holistically. So this is another iteration of have a vomit. So he was absolutely bowled over by it, and I said, I don't have time. I'm not interested. And then cut to 6 months later, and as a writer, I thought, well, I better experiment with this because we're hearing a lot of doom and gloom and all of this. And he was starting to see it trickle through in student work. And I'm starting to hear it in student conversation. So I thought, oh gosh, I better get on top of this. And that was kind of mid-2023. There started to be conversations about agentic AI. And at that point, then I started to feel completely cut out of the loop. And I had no idea what was going on. And that frustrated me no end. So I spent about 6 to 8 months just doing pure research. And as you can imagine, it's a moving target.
It is.
So there's absolutely no, coming out of the field. You either stay on top of it or you're not. And people who are in class full time, it's just impossible. They're dealing with the after effects and they're not at the origin site. So I found it really interesting. I experimented a great deal around summer. It was around summer 2024 last year. And it was just iterating, constantly going, And it opened up so many concerns for me. So the ethics-wise, assessment-wise, all of these massive, massive ideas that, having been on the inside of the IB, I knew how the IB thought, and I wondered what was going to happen next. I think people were really relieved when there was a big statement about it's okay to use AI, but make sure to reference it. And everybody breathed a sigh of relief for a few minutes and then asked, oh God, now what? Now what do I do? Once it's referenced, does it change the grading? Does it change the content? Does it change the cognitive load? There was a big panic. And I started to hear this from a lot of schools that I was working with. So I have spent a great deal of time kind of at the coalface working through that. And then simultaneously in Ireland, I don't know if you know this, but we are the land of data centres for this patch of the world. Massively so. Less a tech hub and more of a tax haven. But anyway, so we have basically, I'm going to be absolutely murdered for that now, but recently we have seen that the energy being consumed by data centres has leaped from like 5% to 25%.
Yep.
And it's putting a massive strain on the grid. And I had to kind of think why that was the case. So I did a lot of work on sustainable AI. And now I'm somewhere in the middle of AI enthusiast and AI doomster. I have a very moderate approach. I think we have to be realistic. And as soon as students are going to use it, and as soon as students are going to use it badly, instinctively badly, they're being targeted all the time. So I set up an Instagram account and a TikTok just to see how much they're being bombarded by humanize this and cheat this way and copy it this way and then put it over here and then put it through that. And then you're absolutely, free and clear. So for me, it's really important, I think, now that we chart a typical, very middle of the road, very organized, very logical approach to AI. I want us to be innovative and respectful of its power and its demand, because the energy demand is insane. It's absolutely insane. And now that they've normalized talking about just going back to nuclear, like this it's not a conversation. I feel like I've
heard that
recently.
conversation. Yeah, it's crazy.
When did we think, okay, well, after Fukushima and after Sellafield and all of these things that made us concerned and careful about nuclear, it just seems like the whole conversation is on fast forward. And I think for schools that don't have the time to do the research and don't have the knowledge base to be able to apply it, my heart really goes out to them. It's really very, very difficult. So I've been working with schools to try to help them develop ethical AI, sustainable AI, but also future-proofing their approach. And that's really challenging.
Wow, I'm out of breath again. Rita, wow, it's just like a workout.
COVID, so I'm finally feeling alive again. So you're getting them to get bombarded.
No, that's fantastic. I'm loving this. It's just so rich and so much to unpack. And so tell me, what does that look like? What kind of conversations do you even have with a school when do they approach you and they say, we don't know what to do? Can you kind of help me? Or do they say, we've got a plan. Can you, come in from an outside perspective and check it? What is it that they're asking for? And what are the conversations like that you're having?
It's funny, there's usually an organic conversation. So if a school engages with me and they want support with their mathematics or science, to say maybe they have a DP department that really wants some help,
right? Or
they have an NYP math review and they'd like me to come in and work with teachers, then conversation at some point will lead to AI. And then it's initially I'll hear, well, gosh, we're on it, or we're not on it, we don't know what to do, or we're ostriching, or whatever the feeling might be. So sometimes it comes up organically. More recently, schools have been approaching me and saying either there's some kind of jurisdictional challenge, whatever it might be. There's a new EU AI Act, for example, that comes on. It came in February, beginning of this month.
Okay.
And schools are now terrified that they're not going to be compliant, that they're not going to be doing what the EU is going to demand. Or maybe in the US with the AI Bill of Ethics, that kind of idea that we suddenly have a reputational or legal risk we better be compliant with. Other schools, they just want to be doing the best they can by their students and are waiting to hear from the IB what the next steps are. And in the meantime, how do they get ready for that? Because for many IB schools down the road, we have on-screen exams, right, for diploma.
It's around the corner.
At some point.
Yeah.
And they want to be ready for that. They want to be, ethically prepared. So for some schools, they'll ask me to come in and review their policies, or in some cases, help them write a policy. There might not be a digital reflexive policy in place. Other times they would like me to check for compliance. So the programs they're using, the AI, whatever the platforms, more often than not, it's wrappers that are in place, so like Toddle AI or Manage Back AI, those kind of things are being inbuilt. But most, I think, is AI literacy. So how can the students, the teachers, and then beyond that, the parents and the governors really understand what the AI landscape looks like. Because that's the thing, they don't know what they don't know. But they want to know.
That's exactly right. And I think they're hearing so much about the negative impact of these things, not realizing how much of it is really seeping into everything we do every single day. And I think that that's it. And I'm hearing a lot from particularly diploma program teachers worried about authenticating work, right? Like that's the biggest conversation we're having. And then it trickles down into those guys also teach MYP stuff and they're like seeing this and that and the habits of this and that. And they're just not sure what to do, right? Like that's what I'm hearing a lot from people. So I don't know if that's what you're hearing or not.
Oh, it's absolutely what I'm hearing. I spoke to a teacher a couple of weeks ago and they said that 90% of what they were receiving in terms of design projects, 90% she could say for sure it was AI. And she reckoned the other 10% was just better at hiding it. So if you're facing that, the teacher, and you're signing off on somebody's diploma, I don't know what the future for internal assessment is. It's definitely, difficult. I've been working with the IB in Cardiff a little bit. And also the HAE and on the enhancing the MYP project. So there's lots of conversations happening around it. But again, you're moving at speed, and the students are probably, and to be honest, I have also seen a slight backlash from the students. Some of the students are now too afraid to go near it.
I've heard that too. Absolutely.
Yeah, that there's a vault of, you're feeding the AI with your work and it's going to accidentally flag your own work as AI. And I have had that. I have submitted my own work. Have you done it too? Have you tried your own work through AI detection?
I have run some things through it. It's just like, I don't know if you remember the early days of Turnitin and some of those other type things where you run it through once as a draft and then it comes back as being copied or plagiarized the next time because it got your information from the first time around. That's oversimplified, of course, Rita, but in the end, and like you said, I've noticed that too. That's what we're hearing too, is especially kids who are like in 12th grade about to finish. They're afraid to touch it because they don't want to endanger like their college acceptance and different things like that. So they're really, really worried. I don't think the kids who are finishing out the MYP are feeling that way yet because they're like, hey, if it helps me do it better, man, let's just knock it out, And so I'm not sure kind of what the policies in most places are. I know that in places I've seen, it's been really just sort of an addendum or an addition to the academic integrity policy, so to speak, and how we're going to kind of approach this. And I've seen two camps. One is we don't use it, which is a lie. Yeah. And then the other is, well, we just have to assume everyone's used it. So let's start to talk through when's it okay? When's it not okay? And to be honest with you, I don't think there's anything wrong with us looking at how we do assessment. I think we need to be looking at the kinds of things we're doing anyway.
Yeah, and it has been. I think maybe COVID set us back a little bit in terms of that development because everything was just like, keep it going, keep it working, keep the students engaged. I think everything became about teaching and learning and not about assessment. But I do think there is a third camp, kind of realistic pragmatists who say AI is changing things. How do we change them for the better, not for the worse? Because we've got data privacy and we have bias and we have inequity and we have invisible, like you said, those kind of invisible algorithms all around us. They're happening constantly. How do we inform our students? And actually kind of simultaneously, how do we inform ourselves? Because that's also difficult, is that we can't see behind the veil. How do we transmit that to students?
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm working on at the moment is, what do the ATL look like reimagined? Because the IB has like one of the best frameworks for thinking about big words.
Yeah.
And that is because I think I'm kind of going to spend the next 2 to 3 months kind of deciding how they fit for purpose right now and which parts are missing. Is there a discernment or a curation that we need to put in there? What kind of core competencies? Because it's such a powerful framework. And you've just raised a really interesting point that we aren't even informing students of the power of their own voice, that they're going to have to go into salary negotiations. They're going to have to go into employed positions and ask questions like, will my voice remain my own? Do you have a right to use it once I've left this job?
Correct.
Beyond IP, we're going to have physical properties that are to be protected.
Of course. I totally agree. And, I'll be honest, this is crazy. I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent. But back when the actors were on strike a few years ago about that whole thing, I honestly didn't have the imagination to think I thought it was kind of silly, right? Like I thought, whatever, not knowing what we know now, that it moves so fast to where there's all these deep fakes and there's all these other sort of AI generated things. I guess they knew more than we knew. We knew it at the time, but wow, I mean, unbelievable. So I totally get that. And, I'm hearing things like, it's not going to replace people, but the people who know how to use it will replace you kind of thing. So I think that's kind of that when we get into the ATL skills and we get into other kinds of like skills, employability skills, definitely what we're even seeing, and you may see this from the people you're working with, but even things like how to properly frame a prompt is really becoming quite a skill, right? Like being able to have a persona and having a need and all. It's almost like Grasps was back in the day when we were using that for design work, creating this like entire framework around how you want to get the best response or the best answer from what you're doing, right? So that's interesting too. Or do you have any interesting like insight on that?
Well, I was thinking a couple of things. First of all, it's nice to hear Grasps instead of Act SFN that I hear from him all the time. So I think somebody made a point recently. I think I was at Charles Fidel's conference and he was saying, or one of his speakers was saying that it's interesting how it was framed in prompt engineering, when it's really a prompt creation, when it's really more of a soft skill writing strength. And maybe that was, I don't know, a bro thing, like a coding bro thing to make it sound more scientific. But I think that's really interesting. But I think
Yes.
when you do say that, I'm in the middle of a bit of a dilemma with that too at the moment. So we've created, at Eblana Learning, we've created these courses, these AI literacy courses to do sustainable, for schools people can't go to or schools don't have access. And I'm now in the position where I've written my scripts, I've written my slides, I'm about to produce this course. Do I create an AI clone of my voice that will speed up the whole process? I go on and do them manually and make them feel more human and warm. And I'm genuinely in this dilemma. I'm not sure. If I do one, it will save me about 15 to 18 hours. If I do the other, will people be able, how good is people's AI sensitivity now? Will they know that it's an AI version of me once I've said 7,000 words into a microphone?
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm really torn because I'm trying to get schools to think about, well, if I do use it, first of all, there's an energy impact. Is it worth it? What will I do with those 15 to 18 hours? Will I really make them? There's a value trade-off that I have to really consider. So when I think, for example, I never ever use image generation just because of the energy required is phenomenal and I feel quite disturbing and upsetting. So I will recycle images wherever I can. So I'm trying to apply a kind of conscious consumerism to my AI usage. However, when the temptation of saving 18 hours, that's significant. That's 2 working days for a workaholic like me. So I don't know. What would you do, Jason? Would you clear your voice to save you 2 days worth or what?
Great question. I will answer it in a long answer, and that is that I've just completed some, just sort of the fundamentals of like digital marketing and digital, how to, be viable online. And they often would talk about A/B tests, like checking like an email or newsletter A/B test, which one does better. I would probably do an A/B test where I do one myself and then do one, that's AI, and then see what the response is, right? Like do one of each. You're saving some time. You're also using some more energy, but just kind of so that see what the appetite's for. That's kind of what I would. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it probably makes me wonder to what degree are people going to be AI sensitive?
Yep.
And to what degree will they actually care? Will some things just be automatically, will all LinkedIn posts be AI slop in the future and people just don't mind? Or will there be kind of a post-IKEA culture where handmade is really valued?
I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. I agree with you. I also would say it would be kind of cool doing the A/B test to show like a little, how they have the stickers on all the appliances that show how energy efficient they are. You could have a little AI label that show the amount of energy either the personal one did or the one that you did with AI. That might be kind of cool. You have a little graphic in the corner with a color to indicate, how much energy each one took, and people might actually choose to go with the more energy efficient version. I don't know. It's just an idea. You heard it here first, folks.
You're as bad as he is. Designs everywhere, huh? You're always thinking.
Oh, we know design's the center of the universe.
Oh my gosh, it is so funny, but it's true. Like I think it is true. There is scope there for people to make
decisions. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, Rita, we could literally go down this rabbit hole all day long. I do want to continue having this conversation, but here's what I think we got to do, because I'm running out of time, and I know you are.
Do with your regular question.
I'm going to hit you with a regular question. Rita, first, this is amazing. I will make sure that people know how to get in touch with you in the show notes, but let's save some time and some AI energy and some sustainability.
Yeah.
If you could recommend one book to everyone to read right now, what would it be?
Well, I mentioned them already. I'm just going through the Charles Fidel Education for the Age of AI. With everything else, as I think constantly, it's dissolving. As soon as they printed it, it was out of date, to be honest. But they're really interesting. There's some good ideas in there in terms of metacognition and meta-emotions. So I would recommend that as a kind of as a tester book. As a less education-focused one, I haven't got any. I'm all education-focused.
That's okay. You know what? I am the same way, so that is totally fine, and I'll make sure that ends up in my Goodreads list, because I have a Goodreads library, so I'll drop that in there so that people can see that.
I would certainly recommend it with discernment.
Okay.
Definitely go to it with a critical eye, for sure.
I've had 3 interviews in the last 2 weeks, and everyone has recommended something and then said, but use it with critical thinking skills. So I love that we're having those conversations. So that's awesome. Next thing is, Rita, this is a deep one. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self something, what would it be?
You're not always right. Listen to that last line of the IB mission statement. Other people with their differences can also be right. I was so convinced, and a good stint in leadership and then a good stint back in the classroom really gives you a nice combination of humility and courage.
It does. It totally does. And that's awesome, Rita. And so I tell you what, I think we'll wrap it up there, but I tell you, I want to extend an invitation for you and I to have a conversation, let's say 6-8 months from now, to see how much we've learned. How does that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you. I could talk all day.
I know, Rita. We're going to have to do this again. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.